Welcome to Cal State Fullerton's The Report with the latest news, views, and info to go. I'm Lena Agulian.
I'm Sarah Fenton.
I'm Hiba Berry.
And I'm Evan Boydston.
Last Friday night, several coordinated terrorist attacks were executed across the city of Paris, France. The first attacks occurred almost simultaneously near the Stade de France, where the French national soccer team was playing against the German national team. Then, in central Paris, gunmen opened fire on a Cambodian restaurant, Petit Cambodge on Rue Bichat, and Le Coréen bar across the street. According to the Telegraph, the fourth attack occurred on Rue de la Fontaine à Roye before the attackers moved on to the Bataclan, a concert venue where the Eagles of Death Metal were playing that night. It was at the Bataclan where the militants amassed the most casualties.
The Telegraph also reports that at least 129 people have died, and many are still in intensive care. 89 people were killed in the concert hall, and 19 people died on the terrace of La Belle Équipe, while 15 people died at La Carillon.
Today we have a special report on the attacks, and we'll take a look at the impact they've had on our world, our nation, and our community.
But before we begin with our segment called Hot Topics, we would like to extend our condolences to the city of Paris, to the family and friends who lost loved ones in the attacks, to the campus of Cal State Long Beach who lost a bright star in the design program, and to the family of Noemi Gonzalez.
On Thursday, the House of Representatives voted to, quote, erect high hurdles for Syrian and Iraqi refugees coming to American shores, end quote. According to the Associated Press, the vote comes as a direct response to the terrorist attacks in Paris last Friday. The vote, which was 289 to 137, is enough to override a presidential veto. CNN reports more than half the nation's governors say they oppose letting Syrian refugees into their states. These states include Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and Arizona. The bill put forth by the House would require new FBI background checks and individual sign-offs from 3 high-ranking U.S. officials before any refugee could come into the country from Iraq or Syria. Though most House Democrats have attributed the Republican response to hysteria, there were 47 Democrats who voted for this bill. Representative Jerry Nadler of New York said, quote, we might as well take down the Statue of Liberty, end quote. Is this the correct response by the United States, a nation built by immigrants? Are the security measures this bill proposes enough to keep us out of harm's way? And will this affect the presidential race?
I think it will split all the candidates by, you have people that say yes, and you have people that are saying no, like the country is split right now. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen the map that is going around like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You have the country that's split on their decision. I think southern states, or a lot of the southern states, are the ones that are saying no to accepting refugees, and then a lot of northern states are saying yes, and then you have some states that just aren't saying yes or no. So now candidates have to take a side, and I think it'll definitely affect the presidential race.
And then it also adds on to the problem of the illegal immigrants here too, and then bringing in Syrian refugees. It's just another kind of problem we have to deal with and balance as well.
I think it's just hard that our country is split on it because we are, like we said, a country built on immigrants. So it's a weird line to walk because America is built on that foundation that people came from all over the world.
And if we were to say no, then we would be hypocrites because we were built on a nation of immigrants. And if we were to turn our backs on them, then it would just, because this is the land of opportunity and the land of freedom, and it wouldn't make sense.
But you have to look at it this way, though. Like, yes, we are the land of the free and everything, but given the circumstances, you can't. One of the terrorists in Paris came through as a Syrian refugee. Yeah. So better safe than sorry. You know, like if there's a pit of snakes and only one of them is venomous, you're still not going to jump in. You know, like people have to be realistic with this because like I think this is completely rational for them to do it like this because like the country is scared. ISIS did their job. They made us scared. Everyone's scared. So I think that this is completely fair that they're doing it this way because realistically, we shouldn't be taking these 10,000 in until we do something about our homeless problem or our orphan problem. You know, there's so much more to deal with in our own country before we do anything else for anyone else, you know.
It's just so hard because it's really hard in Syria right now for the actual people who aren't trying to attack. It's unfortunate because, you know, you see the videos and you see the footage of how scary it is to live there.
Absolutely.
So I understand why they're trying to escape and how the U.S. seems like a good place to go. I know they also tried to go to Europe, I believe, too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a hard.
Well, what's something that they could do is that you can have NATO come into Syria. So NATO, like all the United Nations and everything, come in, set up a safe area in Syria, like have it patrolled by NATO and everyone, and then have a no-fly zone or anything like that, and then we could start rebuilding there. I think that might be like something that we could possibly do. So, because they don't want to leave their country, no one wants to leave their own country. They want to have a safe place where they can vote or have a voice or anything. But they can't do that right now if they don't even have a place of residency. So if NATO came in, cleared out the area, and then the areas that haven't been controlled by ISIS yet or anything, go through, just make it safe, and then that could be the beginning of the rebuilding process and keep people in their home state.
I don't know. I get what you're saying, but I think ISIS will find a way to get into the country no matter what, whether they're...
Oh, they're already there, though. They're
already
there.
here. Mm-hmm. So either way.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And just yesterday, I think, or a few days ago, there was they found refugees coming in through Mexico, like they're Iraqi Syrian refugees coming in through Mexico into Arizona border. So they're coming.
We'll just have to see how it plays out, all of it.
On Wednesday, students gathered on the Cal State Fullerton Squad for a peace-giving vigil. In an email sent to students on Tuesday, Berenicia Eanes, Vice President for Student Affairs, said the purpose of the vigil is to, quote, bring our campus community together in a spirit of peace and resiliency in the face of tragic events, end quote. About 200 people were in attendance, and they were encouraged to write letters of peace. Eanes' email went on to say that as Titans, we, quote, want to affirm our diverse communities and call upon everyone, everywhere, to work against discrimination and hate. The work of making the world a better place, safer place, begins right here on our campus, end quote.
One of the first identified American casualties in the Paris attacks was that of Noemi Gonzalez, a 23-year-old design student from Cal State Long Beach. The CSULB newspaper, the Daily 49er, reports Gonzalez was dining at La Belle Equipe that night when the terrorists opened fire. In an interview with KTLA-5, Noemi's stepfather, Jose Hernandez, said, quote, we don't know if she died instantly or if she suffered or how did it happen. We don't really know, end quote. On Sunday, Cal State Long Beach held a vigil for Noemi in the Student Union where thousands of people were in attendance. Long Beach State has been in close contact with the 16 other students they have studying in Paris, and CSULB President Jane Close Cannoli says they are safe.
With us today is Cal State Fullerton's Director of the Study Abroad Program, Mr. Jack Hobson, who's here to tell us about the Study Abroad Program and how we keep Titans abroad safe. Welcome to the show, Mr. Hobson.
Thank you for having me.
So how many students do we have studying abroad right now?
Currently, we have 59 students studying abroad for the fall 2015 semester.
Okay, and how many of those students were in Paris?
So there were a total of 7 students studying abroad in France, only 1 studying abroad formally in Paris, but we had 3 students that were actually traveling in Paris on an excursion from a study abroad provider from Spain.
Okay, do you know if they were near the attacks at all when they happened?
They were not,
They were
thankfully.
not. Okay, good. So what are the safety measures that you guys take when you send students, across the ocean? What do you guys do to make sure that they're okay?
Right. Well, that's a 2-piece question. One piece of it, which is what do we do on the front end to prepare students? We actually have a significant orientation program where we work with students to zero in on best practices for personal safety. The vast majority of safety incidents that take place for students involve very low-level crime, like a pickpocketing or bad choices around alcohol. That's usually one of the pieces that's involved. And so a lot of our orientation has focused on that. When it comes to a large incident like this, obviously there are a variety of externalities that are attached to this that are evolving. And so what we do is we reach out to the students, we make sure that they have the most up-to-date information, usually as issued by the U.S. Department of State. There is a resource on the U.S. Department of State website for students studying abroad, and we constantly monitor that. We connect students to that, make sure that they are informed and are making the best choices. As an incident happens and evolves, for example, in this case, with respect to the recent terrorist events in Paris, but also a more evolutionary case like the natural disaster that hit Japan a few years ago. You would make decisions and recommendations based on what was happening in the moment. So it's not a one-stop shop of this is what we do 100% of the time. It's more a matter of we're taking in information, we're analyzing, we're looking at what is happening in the field, and then we're making recommendations to students.
Okay. And when the attacks happened in Paris, did the students reach out to you shortly after it happened, or what was that like?
It would be the opposite. We reached out to them immediately.
Okay. Well, that's what I was thinking.
Sure, no problem, no problem. As it should be,
right.
So that essentially what that belies is our proactive approach to student safety and security. So as the incident happened, we found out about it through the news, like most people, at the tail end of Friday. It was the tail end of the business day here. We immediately pulled the names of the students that were currently studying abroad in France in total, and that kicked into motion through risk management. They did immediately reach out to the students through their own contact information as well as the emergency contact information in the student record system. And we heard back from the students within hours that that they were safe and well, thankfully.
Good. It's good to hear that.
Yeah, I agree.
Are there any countries that we can't go study abroad to?
So it's typically not an all or in, yes or no. There are certain countries that are listed as higher risk, both by the U.S. Department of State as well as by our emergency insurance provider. And those higher risk countries might have a higher threshold of administrative processing on the front end, but it's not a hard yes or no. There would be a very, very small list of countries where there is an active conflict going on right now that probably would be about as hard a no as you're going to get. Right now, in 2015, that's going to be places like Syria and Afghanistan. But there's a lot of other countries that might have a slightly elevated risk threat, as is analyzed by the Department of State and our own insurance, that, yeah, it would be a little bit more difficult.
Okay. And despite the, scare that might be running through students, what are the benefits of studying abroad?
Well, the benefits are the same that they were before the incident, and that is study abroad is in two major veins. One major vein is that it really does lend our world to being a smaller and more thoughtful place. Those students who have had experiences with people that are very different from who they are, and hearing their stories, and then in return understanding our own context in the global, in this really small global world that we live in, is normatively a very good skill set. Second to that is the hard professional skill set, which is that, all things being equal, everyone walks out with an undergraduate degree and everyone's going to either apply for a job or apply for graduate school. And there are very small margins that are going to lead the difference between students that are really able to succeed and some other students that might struggle, and study abroad can be that margin. So it has a twofold piece. I think those exist no differently than they did before the attacks. Mm-hmm. Perhaps what the attacks remind us of is the importance of the first one, which is that the world is very small, and in many ways this is a call for us to engage even more so, as opposed to disengaging.
So do you think that people are still going to want to study abroad? Because I think people will still obviously want to study abroad.
Absolutely.
Are you worried that it'll change because of what happened, or maybe just for a little amount of time?
I don't think so. So I've been in the field of international education for 15 years, and my very first semester as a study abroad advisor, so I started out just as an advisor, was spring of 2002, after the fall of 2001, the September 11th attacks. And there was a lot of conversation about that, about are we going to see significant drop-offs in numbers? And in fact, we actually saw the polar opposite. We actually saw a huge surge. I know, that was my thought as well. We saw a huge surge of students wanting to spend time overseas and engage with the world. We might see something like that. At a minimum, I think we've seen steady growth over the past 15 years in our field across the country, and I think we'll continue to see that. I think it highlights the importance of universities having a uniform conversation about risk management and emergency communication. So I think probably more than anything, I don't think it will change the student side of things. I think it highlights the importance of having cohesive administration on the university side of things.
Great. And if students of Cal State Fullertons are looking to study abroad, is there a website they can go to or meet you at an office or something?
Absolutely. We are in room 244 in University Hall, the Study Abroad office and International Student Services office. You can come by and ask to see me. We also have our main Study Abroad website, which is actually getting ready to change, so I won't give you the URL. But I promise you, if you type in Cal State Fullerton Study Abroad, you will always find us.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Hobson.
Thank you for having me.
In the wake of such tragedy, we would like to take a moment to remember the passing of Veterans Day, a day in which we honor the men and women who fought for our freedoms and to keep our country safe. Our reporter Christian Vigil takes us back to last week's Veterans Day celebrations.
All right, thanks, guys. I'm here at downtown Fullerton where they're having their annual Veterans Day parade here to celebrate the men and women that have fought for this great and wonderful country of ours. Located at the corner of Harbor Street and Wilshire Avenue is the start of the annual Veterans Day Parade in downtown Fullerton. The local cadets prepare to pay their respects to the people that have put their lives on the line to protect the United States of America. The locals arrive early to see the cadets march down the street to Hillcrest Park, and behind it all is a SWAT vehicle. Of course, it wouldn't be a proper parade without the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? And American pride needs to be displayed through music. First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might as the army goes rolling along. Speeches from the higher-ups are also part of the festivities, including a fun fact to help motivate the young cadets.
And again, less than 1% of today's of our nation's population serves in the military, so you definitely are an elite group.
From the people of Fullerton to the marching bands to the future heroes of this country, everyone gathers to show their appreciation while the veterans witness the growth of the next generation that will follow in their footsteps. On behalf of everyone here at Titan Communication, we would like to thank the brave men and women that will and have fought for this country. Thank you.
Muslim leaders in Orange County are preparing for a potential backlash after last week's attacks. The OC Register reports Muslim leaders in Southern California are condemning last week's terrorist attacks in Paris and advising mosques and Islamic schools to beef up security and stay on alert. Shakil Syed, executive director of the Islamic Shura Council of Southern California, said, quote, "We are shocked and sorrowful on one side and disturbed to the point of anger that Islam was hijacked by some moronic, corrupted minds," end quote. The council warned its members that terrorist attacks by the Islamic State, also known as ISIS, might lead to vandalism and threats. However, the OC Register reports there have not been any anti-Muslim incidents yet. The group adds that the terrorists who killed more than 100 people last Friday do not represent the religion or the majority of its followers.
ABC7 reports 2 Air France flights bound for Paris, one from Los Angeles International Airport, were diverted because of anonymous threats phoned in after they had taken off on Wednesday. Air Flight France 65 from LAX to Paris was diverted to Salt Lake City, where hundreds of passengers got off the plane safely. Air France Flight 55, departing from Dulles Airport near Washington, D.C., was diverted to Halifax, Nova Scotia, where all 262 people on board were questioned. Late Tuesday night, an FBI statement was released saying they had found no credible threat. Authorities are now trying to identify the source of the calls.
CBS News reports CBS pulled new episodes of their shows Supergirl and NCIS Los Angeles off Monday night's primetime slots. The new episode of Supergirl featured a bombing, and the scheduled episode of NCIS Los Angeles focused on the recruitment of young women by ISIS. And following in CBS's step, Showtime's hit show Homeland aired Sunday night with a disclaimer warning viewers of the upsetting content of the show regularly features. Also, TNT did not air an episode of their drama Legends on Monday because it showed terrorists shooting into a crowd in Paris.
Russia is now cooperating with the French military and sharply ratcheting up attacks on Syrian territory, especially in the areas held by the Islamic State, so reports the New York Times. The move was prompted by Russia's acknowledgement of a bomb destroying a Russian charter jet that crashed more than 2 weeks ago in Egypt. The downed aircraft was headed to St. Petersburg, Russia, with 224 people on board. The plane disappeared from radar and crashed into the Hassana region of the northern Sinai Peninsula shortly after takeoff. The Time reports that Kremlin also announced that President Vladimir Putin and French President François Hollande agreed to coordinate military attacks in Syria would meet later this month in Moscow.
ISIS is claiming responsibility for the attacks in Beirut, Lebanon last Thursday. The attacks left more than 40 people dead and at least 200 others wounded. CNN reports 9 people have been arrested in connection with the bombings, 7 Syrians and 2 Lebanese. A Lebanese security source told CNN that a would-be suicide bomber who survived the attack told investigators he was an ISIS recruit. The Islamic State also claimed responsibility for a car bombing in Beirut last year. Though Lebanon does not have a large Islamic State presence, they have seen plenty of turmoil in recent decades due to the civil war in neighboring Syria.
The hacker group Anonymous has declared a cyber war on ISIS, so reports Fortune. The group, notorious for their signature Guy Fawkes masks, has promised they would attack ISIS in cyberspace with the ultimate goal of the weakening terrorist organization. In a video posted on YouTube, a member of Anonymous said, quote, "Expect massive cyber attacks. War is declared. Get prepared. Anonymous from all over the world would hunt you down. You should know that we will find you and we will not let you go," end quote.
France's president, François Hollande, has vowed to destroy ISIS and has called for tougher laws to fight terrorists on the ground. Variety reports Hollande has also created for more systematic controls within Europe and pleaded for an extension of the state of emergency for a duration of 3 months. Hollande has also called for increased security spending with the creation of 5,000 police. In his speech on Monday, Hollande said, quote, "We are at war, and this war of another kind calls for a constitutional regime allowing us to wrestle a crisis," end quote. In a statement following the attacks last week, President Obama released a statement in which he voiced the country's support for Paris, saying, quote, "France is our oldest ally. The French people have stood shoulder to shoulder with the United States and time and again. And we want to be very clear that we stand with them in fight against terrorism and extremism," end quote.
Well, that's all we have on this special edition of The Report. Tune in next time for more up-to-date news, views, and info to go. Thank you. I'm Lena Agulian.
I'm Sarah Fenton.
I'm Hibba Berry.
And I'm Evan Boydston. Stay fresh, Fullerton.